Skyscraper window cleaners of Reddit. What is most bizarre thing you've ever seen on the job? Once while cleaning a high-rise apartment, an old lady kindly asked me if I was hungry and proceeded to open her window and hand me a pizza slice. So I sat there, 27 stories up, tangling on my chair and eating pizza. It was a good day. Haha, yeah, I've had a cup of tea with a lonely little old lady whilst at a similar height. I told her I didn't need the saucer, thanks. She said, oh right, yes dear. Think she was just happy to have a cuppa with someone, and this instance was a bit different. Not as exciting as the other stories, but something I'm blown away by when I'm on ropes is how many people feel guilty about not working when I'm around. When you look into people's workstations, you can see that almost no one works. Most people are on Facebook, YouTube or on news sites, but the second they notice me outside the window they quickly switch to an Excel spreadsheet, like they think I'm some kind of productivity spy about to rat them out to management. Keep cruising the internet, people, don't mind me. And also, pointing to the window and saying you missed a spot isn't funny. Frick you. I used to live in a high-rise condo. Sometimes the window cleaners go up the side of the building where my small bathroom window is. One Saturday morning after a crazy night out, I ended up needing to take a really spicy beer crap. So I opened up the window and sat down on my toilet, hungover, with my eyes closed, thinking about where I went wrong in my life choices that led me to this moment where death seemed like a reasonable alternative. Then I hear my window close. Apparently the window cleaner needed to close it to go up higher. Cue the slow ascent of their window elevator thing. They saw me destroying my toilet. We made eye contact and I gave him the universal nod of understanding. He gave me one back and continued his slow ascent upwards at like an inch a second. And then BSP. Holy crap. I didn't realize the way I worded the story made it seem like I was either sitting or crapping off my ledge, so I added a little italicized edit. I mean sat down on the toilet. I'm not suicidal, but I'm sure we've all had that hangover where you become borderline just for a while. Mayo. I've been a rope access window cleaner for a couple years and have seen my fair share of weirdness. A couple incidents that stick out are a young couple having fun that invited me to join, an apartment in a ritzy building completely empty other than a table with several sheets of freshly printed and cut $100 bills, a real butt mummy sarcophagus, being offered several joint hits and various adult beverages while hanging off the side of a building. Animals were always my favorite though. Cats and puppies lose their minds seeing you outside their window and will happily chase your mop and squeegee while you work. Always brightened the day. Another memorable moment was causing a mild panic in the dining room of a local retirement home dementia ward. We felt bad and went as quickly as we could, but the nurses laughing their asses off as they tried to contain the pandemonium made us feel slightly better. Not a skyscraper window washer, but was a janitor who had to wash the windows in a 6-story building as part of my job, so I used a mix of ladders and rappelling down from the roof with a harness to clean the outside windows. One day I was washing the outside windows on the executive floor where all the bosses and higher up employees had their offices. I was done with one window, so I moved to the next window and looked in and saw the CEO of the company snorting something in his office with the door locked and the lights off. He looked up and saw me in the window and we made an uncomfortable eye contact for about 15 seconds. Then I just pretended I saw nothing and kept washing the windows. Never spoke a word about it to him or anyone in the office, but the last day I worked there he gave me a farewell card with $200 in it and a free solar powered portable phone charger that the company produced and sold. Friend was fresh out of the shower sitting at her computer desk naked when the window cleaners were at her place. She heard a noise, so she turned around to see 2 men outside her 3rd-story window. So she screams and runs into the bathroom to hide. Later she calls the building management to complain and they tell her that a notice went out and she must not have seen it. Then building management decided to ask the window cleaning service to send those guys to her apartment to knock on the door and apologize to her. Hilariously awkward. Then building management decided to ask the window cleaning service to send those guys to her apartment to knock on the door and apologize to her. Hilariously awkward. Yikes. Okay, So not exactly what OP was asking for, but a funny story nonetheless. I was in medical school on my psychiatry rotation at the local VA hospital. We're in the 6th floor inpatient psych unit seeing a guy with schizoaffective disorder. We were asking him about any hallucinations or delusions he may have been having, and he tells us that he was seeing ropes outside his window and was worried people were trying to get into his room. Seeing that there were clearly no ropes outside his window, we made note of his persistent symptoms and went about our rounds. About half an hour later we get to another patient's room and we suddenly see ropes dropping from the roof down the side of the building. Turns out the poor guy wasn't hallucinating. They were just cleaning the windows. LOL. I am not a window cleaner, but a paramedic. We got a call once to a suicidal window cleaner guy once. We could see what was going on as we approached. He was swinging around and doing tricks in between each wipe of the window, like giant swinging leaps and who knows what else. The police had him come down and asked him what he was doing, and he said he just really loves his job. So we told him he needs to be safe and left him to go back to work. I aspire to love my job that much one day. One time in college I answered a help wanted ad for a window cleaner. I thought it was going to be one of these high-rise jobs. Instead, when I showed up the interview, it was some methy looking guy in a parking lot. I spent the day with him going from house to house cleaning people's windows. He told me to pretend I was his nephew and he kept introducing me to customers that way. Then when we were cleaning windows he kept telling me his fantasies of fricking the housewives. It was super weird. Plus, he chewed tobacco and while driving would spit the juice between his legs onto the floor of his ratty truck. Then at the end of the day he told me it was just an audition and tried not to pay me. One of the strangest days of my life. I am a window cleaner, but not high rise. The thing I can never understand is when I see lip prints where people have kissed the glass in public buildings. People, if you saw what I clean off of those every week, you would never touch the glass, especially not with your lips. Since a lot of people are asking when the glass is super dirty, it's usually grease, old condiments, bird poop, salt from the sidewalks, winter in Colorado, and a lot of the time I can't even tell what it is, I just know looks and smells bad. At the Shard in London it's not uncommon to see forehead imprints on the glass. The building leans in towards its central point and whenever anyone tries to look down to the ground level they inevitably end up headbutting the windows. I'm not sure why, but while I was working on the 47th floor, the window washers had to open a window. It was like a wind tunnel. Papers were blowing all over the place. Why can you even open that window? My uncle is a former window cleaner and he said his most memorable moments were when he lived and worked in Rotorua, which at the time was the crime capital of New Zealand. The most bizarre was when he saw some naked guy, obviously high on something, getting Benny Hill chased up and down a street by the police. The second most bizarre was when he heard a crash, followed by a van tire bouncing down the street that was being chased by a massive Maori guy who proceeded to throw the tire over his shoulder and wander off whistling as if nothing had happened. Well, I was washing the outside of the windows at the group home I work at. State was coming by later that week and I was super bored. I walk up to one of my dude's bedroom windows to wash it off and apparently he hears me outside somehow even though he had his radio turned up to about 9,000, like he always does. He rips up his blinds, totes naked, and starts slapping himself repeatedly in the forehead and screaming. This was pretty normal for him, but it's definitely the strangest thing I've ever seen so far in my life while washing a window. I was visiting my grandparents in a high rise, looking out their windows a few stories up. As the window cleaners went by, I happily watched them clean, hands folded behind my back, because the windows were a one-way type thing where they were basically mirrors from the outside in. I knew this because I'd seen the building from the outside. Unbeknownst to me, the level of reflectivity changes pretty drastically depending on the time of day, and I realized that when the window cleaners were going by, they had to wash the windows while some weirdo, me, stood about 12 inches from the window watching their form. I'm sure they realized you were just interested, the same way a nearby cat might be. During my stint as a window cleaner, about 3 weeks, I didn't really see anything outrageous, but I will never forget how I got fired. The boss hands me my check, tells me that I don't need to come back on Monday. I wasn't surprised, and says, "Pierced Jeek, You can clean a window and it'll actually be clean. And I can't say that about everyone I hire. But man, watching you climb a ladder is like watching a dog trying to crap a peach seed. OMFG, this took off. I didn't think anyone would even see it. I think what he meant was the shaky, super careful, super slow way I would get up to the window to clean it. I effing hate ladders and was battling every survival instinct just to be on the stupid thing. Thus the lack of surprise on my part. I have no idea what that means. It was a normal morning and I had just began cleaning windows. I'm cleaning one with the blind down, not really paying attention. I realize that the blind is slowly rising and when it finishes opening I see him. Cricket legend Brett Lee doing yoga. Will never forget that day. 10/10 would hear story about Beenga again. My condo building was having the windows cleaned. Being a teenager, I forgot. I was in my room with my girlfriend at the time. I start hearing this noise and think that's weird. There's no floor above us. So I stop and start turning my head. I'm still on top of her. When bam, ladder appears at my window. Middle-aged window cleaner sees us. Starts laughing. I jump up naked, covering myself, and run for the remote for the automatic blinds. Pressed the button, and stood there in front of the cleaner while my blinds slowly VVVVVRRRRRRRR. I stand there buck naked for a good minute while the cleaner and my GF laugh their asses off. Not really what he saw but what he did. My great grandfather was a window cleaner for a period. He was an immigrant and basically doing anything he could to make money. One day he was cleaning a 3rd-story window and somehow slipped and fell. He then proceeded to get up and go back to cleaning windows because he needed to get paid. I never got to meet him but he was a cool guy. What I got was a lot of flirting. I don't know if the pane of glass gave them a sense of safety, or if lots of office chicks are just bored, or if our red overalls were particularly fetching but something brought out the bachelorette instinct. Notes pressed against the glass. Pretend lesbian performances, you name it. Only seemed to happen when there was a group of ladies though. I'm not you pivot sex despite the weird similarities. Is it too late to switch careers? Not a window cleaner but do have a couple of stories. My parents were having the windows changed one day and didn't warn me. So I went to bed nude. It was summer and British houses aren't designed for heat. Woke up the next morning to scaffolding being put up. Luckily my bed was hidden so they couldn't see me, but I had to hide in the corner of my bed and text my mum to get some clothes for me to wear. A guy I briefly dated told me the story of the time his parents forgot to tell him they were having the windows cleaned. His entire family went out for the day so he decided to whack one out, nude, with his blinds open. Just as he's on the edge he looks up and sees a very uncomfortable man at his window trying to clean it. That window washer is a trooper for sticking around and do his job while that guy was yanking on the knob. That said, I'm a guy. The washer was also a man. We both know that if we see another dude abusing himself, he'll be done in less than 20 minutes, give or take. I would have waited for him to finish the job so I can start mine. My grandfather met my grandma while working as a window washer. He put his phone number right up against the glass of her office and hoped she wrote it down. She didn't call and they've been married for 60 years. That sounds like a fun story to tell at anniversaries. Not a skyscraper cleaner, but the person on the other side of the window. I was using a single occupancy restroom on the 22nd floor of a building that had a floor to ceiling glass window along the side of the toilet. Weird, I know. Anyways, I'm taking a wicked crap, and I was wearing a romper, so sitting there in just a bra, with my romper around my ankles, crapping my little heart out. I saw the window washer and was a little startled but thought the windows were tinted, it was fine. Alas, we accidentally made eye contact as I was standing up to wipe my butt. Clearly tinting does not work up close. Could have died. My ex was a high-rise window cleaner and he always talked about the crazy things women did. It seems like the glass gives them a sense of security and they do things that I don't think they'd do if that glass wasn't there. Women flashing and pressing their chests against the glass. Mooning and pressing their butt cheeks on the glass. Writing their phone numbers and pressing it against the glass. There was one point when we were engaged and he would hold his finger up and point to his ring. He wore an engagement ring too. It didn't seem to stop some of the women. In fact, it made some of them try harder, he said. He did say the hardest for him were the children's hospitals and when he'd cleaned the windows of the very sick children. His company did do the dress up as superheroes thing while they cleaned the windows, which made it fun for kids, but he said it was still heartbreaking for them. Not a window cleaner, but was caught by one while jerking off. They never cleaned the windows in 9 years of living here and the one day they arrive unannounced. This happens. So embarrassing. RIP. Capital F. Not a window washer but I was working construction on a new tower. A bunch of guys were meeting up on the 11th floor to start the day. As I come walking up I can see they are all staring out the window at the tower across the street where this guy is holding up a pair of legs going to town. After the finish is up another dude stands up and all the old boys start freaking out. They were just watching and enjoying two guys getting down. Was in King's Cross in Sydney about 15 years ago. When I finished my drop and landed on a lower roof, I witnessed a working girl giving a guy in a wheelchair a BJ. He looked at me and gave me the thumbs up. Nearly fell over laughing. When I was in hospital in labor with my daughter, I look up from lying over the bed, massive belly, moaning, and what do I see? A window washer. The funniest thing was that the windows were reflective and he clearly couldn't see me. Or if he could, he was a world champion poker player. He had no idea he was 3 feet away from a groaning elephant-like naked lady. Despite the pain I laughed. Window cleaner here. I have a few stories of cleaning high-rise that still make me chuckle. 1. My co-worker, who no longer works there, always used to crap his pants. Like, he had an issue but never took care of it medically. IDK, but it was always a joke. One day after lunch we were strapping up to go over the side and he turns to me and says, "Dude, how quick do you think we can get this drop done?" Me, it's only a 7-story so maybe 30 minutes or so. Why? Him. Alright, let's go. It was a goofy edge so sometimes we would hand each other our buckets of water. The second I handed him his water he screams into my face, "God damn it." What I witnessed next was probably the quickest descent I've ever seen as he's cursing the entire was down the rope. Absolute hilarity. For clarification, yes, he indeed shat himself. Another story. 2. Different co-workers. There were 3 of us that dropped next to each other. One of them loved screwing with people on the inside. This was a dorm, about 25 stories or so. Near halfway down the building you can really start swinging, and he yells at me and the other guy to swing over to him. On his drop was a college girl passed out on the windowsill. Him on the count of 3. Slam your suction cup on the glass and scream. We proceeded to scare the living crap out of this poor girl. She fell off the sill almost immediately. It ended with everyone laughing. She took a selfie with us and she later met us at the bottom of the building and punched all of us. Playfully. She had a good spirit about it. I have some more, but I get to these threads super late. Opposite side of spectrum. Anytime the cleaners went by we put the weirdest pee we could find up on our giant freaking TV. We would just casually sit there and watch pterodactyls bang some chick, as if we were watching the news. Hopefully, it was weird for them. I am happy to see I have been able to share such a lovely film with everyone. Mayo WTF. I was once cleaning a skyscraper where I know nearly everyone that works there. I saw a male job interviewer freaking another guy, probably someone he interviewed. The interviewer, who is straight, married and has kids, gave me $500 not to tell anyone. Easiest money I ever made. We had just gotten down to the 17th floor of a 30-story apartment building next to Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia when I realized that I had to take a massive crap. It was pretty much out of the question to take the scaffolding all the way down to the 1st floor and back up to the 17th so I could poop. It would just take too long. Lucky for me the apartments had no residents yet, so I climbed in from the balcony and did my business in one of the toilets. And lucky for me the apartments had no residents yet, so there was no toilet paper. Wound up using some of our microfiber towels we had with us and didn't really have a choice but to leave them in the apartment. Yikes, what a crappy day. I worked in a high-rise in Chicago. A couple stories from the other side. 1. Sitting in a meeting. Once saw a window washer in one of those bucket seats at the building across the street. Up maybe 40-50 stories. Completely lose control. Flung out and swung around, spinning. Everyone in our meeting lost our minds watching this. He regained control and just sat there for several minutes clinging to the building, and we all just sat there watching in total silence. It was scary as heck to see. Cannot imagine he didn't quit the job after that. 2. Same job, different day. A woman flashed her boobs to the window washers. One of them came up to our floor asking for her, probably hoping to get her number, and word got out what she'd done. She was fired. Not a window cleaner, but my therapist and I meet at her office in a skyrise, and we've begun this weird tradition of stopping everything we're doing, even if I'm like in the middle of crying or something, and just smile these huge creepy smiles while trying not to blink as the guy washes the windows. He loses his crap and starts laughing before he gets to the end every time, and then waves by at us and we resume whatever it is we were talking about. That is fantastic. I kid you not, when working on a job, a bird flew into the window and everyone inside was looking dead at me. I later found that they thought I was trying to be funny and get their attention. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.